Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Admissions Roadmap MBA Success Stories. Our mission here is to get successful Indian applicants to come on this show, make sure that they talk about the lessons they learned along the application journey and along the business school MBA journey as well. Something I like to call the circle of admissions roadmap, where I hope people come, listen to the interviews, go upon their journey, whether working with me or without, and then come back and do the interviews and teach other people. One such guest is joining us today. Ponna, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Ashwin. Does feel like a coffee with Karan kind of interview.
I mean, it's just me, man. It's just me. You and I have spoken for many years now.
Yeah.
I know you personally. We talked about your MBA aspirations first, maybe 3 or 4 years
Right
ago
after
when you were just starting your professional career. You've come a long way since. Congratulations on your success, and let's break down how you got into Rotman and the journey that lies ahead at a later point. But let's start off with a little bit of background on you.
Sure.
Um,
So
you went to engineering. We'll talk about the engineering piece very, very briefly only, but you then joined financial services companies working in the investment banking space in Mumbai. Let's talk about your background in a little more detail so people understand what kind of work you do.
Okay, sure. So as you started off, education background was in engineering. Post that, my career in investment banking started off with Barclays. I joined their credit repo trading desk, worked there along with traders in New York to help them, manage their book as well as build analytic tools for the desk. Following that, during my stint here, I completed my CFA, and that's when I wanted to dwell more into research. And I got an opportunity to move to eValueServe, work there as a credit strategist for a North America bulge bracket. And my life was around credit derivatives, investment grade. It's totally around that. And I've been in sell side for like close to 4 years, and that's when I wanted to pivot to the buy side, and that's when the MBA journey started.
Let's go back one step for people who have changed careers from an education in engineering to a career in financial services. Why were you interested? Because you've gone along and cleared your CFA, all 3 levels. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes, and you applied to Rotman. What many people don't know, Rotman is one of the few schools where you don't need to apply using a GMAT. You apply to Rotman using your CFA because it gives them an equivalent proxy for a person's analytical ability and ensures that this person can get through the academic rigor. Let's talk about what your motivations were in financial services itself before we go into the MBA journey.
I was always interested about the markets to learn more about that. Dug around a little bit on what books that I can, get my theory base at least cleared on. And I stumbled upon this certification that was there. Thought, let me just give level. So the initial thing was, let me just give level 1 and get a brief idea of, what I'm getting into. Then just remotely saying I like markets. So gave it, and I was like, oh, hell, this seems much more interesting than my engineering. And then it was back to back, level 2, 3. I got a job in an investment bank by the same time. So was able to apply that into practice. So then that got, just reading it in theory is not that much fun, where you can actually see, okay, how does this trade pay off to when you actually recommend something. And so that's been the journey actually through that.
The reason I asked this is not to digress away from the MBA journey, but to point out to people who are going to be listening that you have been a go-getter in even carving out your own path. You did so non-traditionally, applying without a GMAT. You did so knowing that from engineering you can get to financial services, and you've done so in your entirety of the application, which we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Let's talk about the motivations of why you wanted an MBA before we get into the application process itself.
Right. So, if you just, based on my brief introduction, you would have seen that I worked historically with the North America market, and I worked in sell side. And it's when, working for the buy side guys is when I realized that, I actually want to be on the other side of the investment. And I thought this is the perfect time for me. I have 4 years experience, perfect time for me to, leverage an MBA, learn more towards fund management, and get an opportunity to try and hopefully intern at a buy side and in the long run convert that. And I thought that's the reason why I thought the MBA would help me pivot. I'm not pivoting industries, but just pivoting, from one side to the other. And I thought the MBA would be the perfect bridge for that for me.
You've grown in your career, as I see in your LinkedIn. So you've had steady progression, but you knew also that you wanted to change geographies. From the first time we spoke about your MBA aspirations, you told me you wanted to go study in Canada. Um,
Right.
Talk about why, what the motivations were to go change geographies and study specifically, do your MBA out of Canada.
So, I mean, uh, when it goes to shortlisting schools, I wanted to definitely work in the same place that I studied, like get a practical experience of the region that I'm going to. And given the current scenario globally, I found Canada being the most inclusive and diverse in that nature. That's one aspect of it being an inclusive environment. The other thing was working for me in Toronto would be an amazing market to be in, and I have exposure towards North America, so it would be a perfect place for me to have both this inclusive diversity along with an opportunity to be in a really great market. So that's why I was targeting Canadian B schools specifically.
You told me long time ago, right after you received your admit when we spoke, you told me an interesting stat that I did not know, which I had anticipated. Given all the visa challenges that US has during the Trump era,
Right.
you told me that the percentage of
60%
application.
uptake in
There
B
you go.
schools in Canada.
I want this to be repeated. There was a 60% uptake of applications to B schools in
In
Canada.
Canada, I think around 40 was uptake in Rotman itself.
Correct. And
Right.
you applied to two schools. You applied to Rotman, you applied to Ivy,
Right to
both
Ivy.
some of the best schools in Canada. You got into both. You did phenomenally well. Um, let's talk about the research process of how you went about. There are only 4 or 5 schools highly reputed in
Right.
Canada, so it narrows down the process. Talk about the research and what was involved in understanding more about what Rotman offers as an MBA program.
So I think anyone's going to typically Google and try and get the ranking, the employment report, statistics around that. You dig in, okay, finance, and then further dig down to see, okay, what under that. Uh, so you can there's a lot of data that you can get on either the college's website or by just normally Googling. But I would say a better way to research is to try and connect with maybe some students who've passed out from there or a current student to get an idea, maybe someone in your very same industry that you can relate to, and get a feedback from them as to this is what my career goal is, and get an idea of how the school is and what's it like studying there and whether your goal can be achieved. And I think that's another way for you to research. So based on that, I realized that the brand recall that these two schools have in Canada is phenomenal. Both are right up there. And other thing that I realized something great about Rotman is that its location is centric towards downtown and the financial hub. So networking being a key component for you, you don't waste time in traveling. So that's also something that really stood out for me. Then Rotman's opportunities with the labs that it has, the associations that it has, like its clubs, and the practical aspect of there's an investment arm. You can take a value investment class and you can actually invest, be part of a thesis that recommends a stock, and they can actually go ahead and invest if things work out. So the whole aspect of the practical thing to it, the networking aspect of it, students being really approachable, friendly, giving you advice, guiding you, taking out their time. I found that culture to be very friendly with current and past students. And this is across Rotman and Ivy, I would say, and across from students to the admission committee. So it felt like a very, I would say, very, very friendly and inclusive environment.
Let's talk about the friendly and inclusive environment, specifically in your case at Rotman. If I recall, you reached out proactively to a current student then at Rotman as you were preparing to apply. What was that? What was the process? What was the conversation you had, and what ultimately ended up happening?
Right. So, I reached out to a current student who had a fair background in finance consulting, and expressed my interest that I haven't applied to now, and expressed my interest that I'm interested in applying.
This is on LinkedIn, right?
Right. Sorry.
This is via LinkedIn.
Yeah, via LinkedIn. Yeah, dropped random message on LinkedIn and requested if I could get on a call. And I got the opportunity. This person was really friendly enough to take his time out, get on a call with me, hear my story out, give me pointers on you can say this better in this way. Actually forget talking about the school. Actually even guided me,
advising
and then got me in touch with someone from the admission committee. They were coming down to Bombay for an MBA fair, And that's when I had the opportunity to have a one-on-one chat with someone for 20 minutes. And I think, my just randomly cold calling, not cold calling, but connecting with someone gave me the opportunity to understand more about the school, gave me an opportunity to meet someone from the admission committee. And I think that was really helpful in understanding more about the school and, getting myself out in front of the admission team.
When people speak to cultures at schools, right? Culture is very indicative from the moment you start interacting with them.
Right.
There is a greater propensity for people, especially when they've received such a welcoming conversation even before you've applied. It's often the case that when you go into the school, you will repeat the same favor for another person. You will do the same thing for a person who's looking for jobs once you've graduated from Rotman, much like you will find when you reach out to a Rotman alumni if you're looking for jobs there. So I think that's a wonderful thing. Let's talk through before. Oh, you said you met with the admissions committee member when he came in the admissions fair in Mumbai.
Yeah, they're the usual MBA fairs that happen. So I got a chance to meet.
This was before you finished your entire application, or was it after?
Yes, before I submitted it.
Okay. These fairs are typically fairly crowded, especially in India. You have tons and tons of people come in and they're meeting with many schools. Talk to me about your conversation with this person one-on-one, with the admissions committee member during the fair.
I think, so I got an opportunity to meet 20 minutes before the fair actually started. So I got an option to have a one-on-one. So that's what I was like, I would recommend people go for the fairs, but, you'll get an idea about, like, for example, when I went for the fair, I did get an idea about what they're expecting from the essay. They wanted it to be more overall. The essay is basically spike factors for people who don't know it. And they didn't want it to be just concentrated towards your work. They wanted it to be describing
about your overall personality itself.
Yeah. It's not just your work, because that they can see in your resume. So for someone who was, I was centric towards work in the beginning in my essay, and then I had to redraft it because I got this pointer while going for the MBA fair where I was like, let me bring out a more
balanced view.
So you might get, a few inputs, few pointers when you go for these fairs. But of course, meeting one-on-one, you can express yourself as to what you've done historically, in the past, what you're looking to get out of an MBA. And if you have any questions that you would like to address, that person can definitely, help you answer those questions and give you some more details.
And all this was because you reached out to the current student who put you in touch, and you got this little one-on-one before the fair started. So that gave you a leg up.
There's also an opportunity I've realized in Canadian B schools where you can submit your resume beforehand. IB definitely has that. And if your resume is strong enough, they will definitely revert back to you and help you in the process. Also, if you do this much in advance before the round deadline, and if they're traveling to your specific country, location, you might have an opportunity to have a one-on-one chat. So I would recommend anyone who's interested to start much in advance, and don't be shy in submitting your resume for review. It'll go a long way in starting the process. Your essays don't need to be ready, but you can definitely start the conversation and reach out to people much in advance. They're really helpful, is what I realized.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Let's talk about let's switch gear to the application itself and the essays. Rotman is very progressive, much like other Canadian business schools compared to the US schools in changing up the entire essay format itself. They have introduced video essays and timed video essays that come off that don't allow you for a lot of preparation time. That actually helps guard people against working with admissions consultants all the time, because you need to be yourself while answering those questions. You can't over rehearse and over prepare. Talk about each of the essays. One of it, the biggest one, was, I think, what's your 1 to 3 spike factors, and upload the pictures and then speak about it in the application or in the essay, right? Talk about how you went ahead preparing for that essay. Because I know some interesting points. I just want others to know this.
Right. So this essay requires pictures. So that first of all gets you a little flustered. Like, oh, damn, I need to go back, see what I can upload. So yeah, I basically wanted to be as honest as possible and tell them my story, right? And I think what represented me was my passion about being in the finance industry and my inclination towards sports, right from me being in school, and how I've taken that and applied that to my work. So I wanted to, these were the certain spikes that I've had, and that's what I wanted to bring across and basically represent who I am and be honest to myself. So, my foundation was in engineering, and that set the whole foundation for analytics. And that's what I wanted to bring across, as analytics is one of the spikes, and how that's transcended into finance. And so one of the pictures that I used was me with a circuit board in my engineering lab, to me being behind 4 screens in a trading terminal at an investment bank, and how both is underlying with the spike of analytics behind it as the crux.
Let's pause that here for a second. I just want to make sure that people understand this very clearly. Just because you came from an engineering background and then went to finance, you found a common thread. And the thread that tied an engineering discipline as well as the finance, particularly in the trading and research and analytics discipline that you were in, was that of both of logical thinking and analytical rigor.
Right.
And you showed that. You made that connection, and you showed that as a story which can seamlessly talk about your entire journey from engineering until your passion for finance. And that's an incredible thing for people to learn. Anyways, I just want to point that out. Going ahead.
So then, so as I said, when I'd gone to the MBA fair, they wanted to know more about your overall profile. So I wanted to bring across more about, what I'm passionate about and what I do apart from work. And sports was something that I was really involved in. So at my work, I was part of the sports committee, and we organized inter tournaments within the company, and also corporate level tournaments, represented the company and corporate level tournaments. So, I had pictures around that where I, was playing badminton. I played badminton right from when I was a child, under 12. So I had pictures representing my current company, and I brought that across, my adventure sports that I've done, scuba diving and stuff like that, was able to highlight that through my pictures that I had. And basically highlight my journey apart from, the whole crux of work. What have I done beyond that in terms of my passion for sports? How I've tried to apply that in my work to create a nice, fun environment through the sports committee, and how I took my passion there too. So I tried to bring all that. I had some pictures to do justice to that. I also had one quirky one that we spoke about, where back in my engineering days, I took few tries at financial modeling at fashion.
Just normal modeling.
Yeah, moved from fashion modeling to financial modeling. But yeah, I tried, represent my college in a lot of cultural events that in modeling, and I had a lot of pictures for that. So that's what also an aside that I wanted to show, that in my traditional field of study, I went and did something a little different that an engineer you wouldn't idly see trying his hands on. So I wanted to basically be honest and true to myself, and that's how I try to, show my essay as who I am.
It's a different thing. If I had a pretty mug like you, I would probably do that as well. But for those that are not limited by it, these are actually very, very important points. The reason schools ask to present a balanced personality or showcase your entire self, and not just, I'm exceptional at work, I had great leadership potential there, but show what you're interested in, is it gives them an appreciation for the fact that you're more than just a one-dimensional person. Right? Even within engineering, you did something a little more unique to pursue your interests. The first time I met you, you were at your school when you were in 10th grade, and you were a goalkeeper at school. So your passion for sports has gone a long way. Your passion for adventure sports, both at work or otherwise, you showcase that as a story as well. It's important because of one thing. Most people think, extracurriculars, I got to talk about donating blood, helping the poor, going and teaching. These are all noble adventures. People should do it because there are some people that need to do it. But it's not the only thing you need to speak about to stand out. You can speak about your true interest, and that's what you did.
Right.
That's good. You then talked about then there's an essay about a reflection. What are the few attributes or 3 attributes or characteristics that best describe you? Right. Yeah. We don't need to go into the 3 to 5 attributes. It doesn't matter. Talk about the process you went through in getting those 3 to 5 attributes so people can learn from it.
Right. So this is a pretty good thing about B schools. I feel like you learn to introspect. Okay, who am I? What about me are factors that define me? So, a lot of times you might think that, hey, this is what I am. These traits represent me. But I thought, let me hear it from people who've actually worked with me and who are my close friends and who'll be honest with me. So I've managed to make really good friends while working. So I reached out to my colleagues and, I asked them, what good and bad, frankly, not just the good. So I was like, what do you think, what were the traits that you think represent me? What do you think that you liked about me? What did you dislike? And I, shot that out to like 8 to 9 people, got a feedback. You can see a common overlap with what they hate about you and what they like about you. And yeah, that's how I was able to reflect and what I felt also at the end of the day. And yeah, based on that, I was came up with the attributes that I felt truly represented me.
Did you tie it in with the first essay at all about the spike factors? Did they have any commonality or common theme that you tried to paint around it?
Around the spike factors?
Yeah, between the spike factors and the 3 to 5 attributes that stand out about you.
Yeah, I think it definitely comes because I was trying to be honest about the whole approach, about, as I said, my passion for finance, to the analytic, to sports, and so when you hear about someone, like the first thing I would say, hey, what do you think about me? Passionate about finance would be like someone's instant first message reply, or analytical approach towards everything. Like, if I have to talk about which restaurant to go, maybe I'll break that down as to why that would be the best restaurant. So these words were definitely common words that were coming out from, and that was just basically certifying what I had written as my essay. And I was like, okay, fine, this is definitely representative of what's coming out in the essay. And yeah, so yeah, I would say, there's a strong overlap on that.
It's always an interesting and useful exercise to do, even if there is no question in a school that says what are the 3 to 5 attributes that stand out about you. The self-reflection process kickstarts everything you need to write in an MBA essay, particularly for the US and Canadian schools. So that's always a good exercise to do. Rotman also has a third part to the entire response. As you fill up the application and as you're submitting the essays, you also have your video essays. They throw up 2 video questions that you have like a minute or something to answer on the spot. Do you remember the questions and what you answered about them?
So I'm trying to recollect now.
I
don't really remember the question, but I think what advice I would definitely give out to people who are trying to do this is, you can set up, you have a lot of practice questions that you can try. And it's a little weird talking to yourself and getting an answer in 30 seconds. So you can practice a bunch of time to see is your camera good? Is the lighting good? Are you able to speak within 30 to 60 seconds of the time that you've given? So I would say, but it's an easy question. It's about yourself, so it'll flow through. Don't need to worry about it. But yeah, you can practice it a few times.
There was a guy in. I do want you to think about if you can remember the question, but I'll tell you, there was a guy in business school at Ross, a Chinese guy who was looking to get into McKinsey, BCG, or Bain in the China offices. To know how he is while he's solving a case and what his body language is and how he's talking. He used to record himself on the phone.
Oh.
Just being himself, as if he's talking about the case to somebody and he's showing the math behind the case. And he used to watch it, and he did that on a loop till a point where he got comfortable. People underestimate the need for preparation, even if it's a 1-minute thing. When you're just responding something off the cuff, and you may be great on camera or not, it's just useful exercise to turn on Skype. There's an auto record function. Just do that. Look at yourself, see if you're appearing okay, and go nuts. I think that's the best preparation you can do. Any memory or recollection of the essay itself?
Oh man, it was so on spot. Not able to recollect on that.
That's fine. These are generally just about either what are you passionate about, or what's something you value, or things like that.
It's more something. It's about yourself, which you can easily, just on spot. They want you to be yourself. They don't want it to be rehearsed. So it's something personal. It's nothing technical. So it's just about you. And
the only advice I'll give to people is, given that the duration is just about a minute or so.
Right.
Make sure even if you take 5 seconds at the beginning to think about the answer, just think about how you want to structure the response.
Right.
You would be much better served if the answer flowed in a linear fashion, so that it doesn't look like you're throwing a lot of information at them, but driving towards a point. So make sure you think about it that way while you're preparing for the essays. Before we talk about advice that you have for other Indian applicants, I want to talk about the interview process itself. You got a response after you submitted within 1 or 2 weeks. You were called for the interview, as I recall. They were fairly quick.
Lucky enough to have it very quickly.
Talk about the interview experience. Who was it with? Not the person, but was it with an alumni? Was it with admissions directors? And what was the overall experience like? What questions were asked?
Right. So it was with someone from the admission committee itself. No alumni on it. I think the best way to prepare for an interview like this, at least what I would personally felt, was, as I said, like when you introspect about what are your strengths and weaknesses with your friends or colleagues, like definitely do the weakness part too, because nothing's going to be flawless in your life, right? So they want to understand what were the shortcomings that you had in your projects, to your personal life, anything, and what did you do about it. And so when you actually introspect a lot on not just your positive but your weakness, I think that would be a really good way to go approach the interview, so that you can think about some project maybe that didn't go too well, or maybe some colleagues that you really didn't get along with. But how do you try to manage that? Because everything's not going to be so glossy in B school. You might not like the group that you're put in or whatever. So yeah, they want to understand that. They also want to understand, your nature of working. So because it's not only about what you can take from the school, what you can give back to the school. So I would say so what you can leverage, what you can bring to the class, and what you can contribute, if it has to be to, forget as an alumni, I'm saying as a current student also, if you can contribute towards some certain club, how I connected with the current students and they helped me, they definitely amplified my thing for Rotman, how they spoke well about the school, how they connected, how they helped me just feel like, okay, this is going to be an environment that I would love to study in. So that's like contributing to the school. I think they want to see whether you have those traits that you can give back, and also whether have you learned from your weaknesses. And of course, your strength goes without saying. To learn, think about what you've done in the past, learn about your projects, go back to things, speak to colleagues, get an idea about what they perceive about you. I think that would be a good starting point for the interviews.
I assumed yours was a standard 30-minute interview and it was more of a casual conversation than a formal interview itself, right?
It was, I would say 45 minutes, 45 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Anything?
It was about...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it was casual. It was quite casual, but it was talking more about my experiences from, projects to a lot of topics were touched upon. Good. But yeah, it was pretty casual.
You had a tough decision to make while you got admits from both Ivy as well as Rotman. I know this interview is about Rotman and the application process itself, but let's talk about, let's shed some light on Ivy and some really fascinating things you told me about how difficult this decision was to make, and talk about why it was difficult, and what about Ivy stood out to you as well.
Right. So something that really stood out to me about Ivy was how welcoming the entire admission committee, and this goes for both schools, but something that definitely stood out too was about Ivy. And for instance, as I said, when you submit your resume, they get someone in touch with you, if giving you feedback on your resume. There'll be someone in touch with you to say, do you have any issues with the application process that you have? It could be something stupid technical. After you submit, if you get an interview call, there's someone that talks to you a little bit about the interview process that's going to happen and what Ivy expects, because you talk to the career committee in Ivy. So you talk to people who get you, help you out in the placement process. They want to see if you're job ready. It's a 1-year course. So they want to see if you don't have an internship opportunity. So they want to see if you're industry ready. So the whole process, it's so helpful. And I had 2 calls before I gave the actual interview call. And these 2 calls were about
immensely helpful.
Yeah. Immensely helpful about my application process. If I asked questions about a certain club, and once I got an admit, they connect you with a student who is of the same industry, basically wants the same goals as you, and of course that person can help you out much better. That happened with Rotman too. I was asking questions more about the asset management club, and I was assigned a buddy, and that buddy was heading the asset management club. So what better insight you can get? I had questions on that. Here, talk to the head of the club,
the head of the office.
Find how you can climb your way to be there. And so I was assigned a buddy in both schools, and got in touch with them on call. Very helpful. So yeah, I don't know how far B schools are so helpful with the admission process. From the admission committee, I don't think it's like that. Such a personalized approach, and that's something where I was like, okay, wow, this is something really amazing.
It's very, very rare. More typical of Canadian business schools than it is, let's say, of
Okay.
the broader American business schools. I want to close out with the advice, any one, two pieces of advice that you have for other Indian applicants looking to apply to top business schools, particularly the Canadian ones. What do you want to share with them?
Yeah, definitely. I think, we, you'll, of course, when your journey for your MBA comes, your profile's done, your resume is done. There's nothing much you can change at that juncture. What I think personally helped me a lot, and I really would recommend this to people, is move across from, okay, what's your score, what's on your resume, and try and reach out to people from the college who've passed out, maybe admission committee. You will get to know a lot more about the school than you can just see as the employment report. You will learn more about what projects they've done, the case comms that they have done, whether your goals are going to be met, and whether you can get something out of this college that you're actually targeting, whether that's achievable. Only a alum can tell you they can give you
Whether
much
that's
detailed picture
realistic or not.
than a PDF.
Yeah.
And at the same time, as I told, as I was able to get in touch with someone from the admission committee, because I reached out to multiple people and got that opportunity, it clicked for me that way. So definitely network beforehand, learn more about the school, get a more detailed insight from people who are currently in the school or past out. I think it's really helpful for someone to do that. Canadian B schools give you an opportunity to submit your resume. Definitely do that, and be honest to yourself. There's nothing wrong in wanting to continue in the finance industry. There's nothing wrong in being a research associate. It's great to change the world. If you have something like that and you're true and honest, it'll come out. But if not, there's nothing wrong in continuing the path that you want to. Like I'm passionate about the finance industry. I want to move there. There's nothing wrong in being honest about it. So be honest to yourself. Definitely try and network and reach out to people. They are really helpful. I would say these two are the definite advice I would give.
This is great advice. I know that you have a Rotman networking even before you go to your MBA.
Right.
You've had 3 events already. You have
I'm
one
having
today.
one right now.
Yeah, later today. So thank you so much for taking time before you go meet all of them. You've been extremely helpful. I hope you pass on the same goodwill to other people while they're trying to get into business school. I'm going to encourage, after this goes out, I'm going to make sure people who reach out to me, I'm going to put them in touch with you while you're in school so that they can. Yeah.
Definitely.
Thanks so much for doing this, dude.
I would be in the school, so I would give a better insight. Would love to take this. Maybe once 6 months in, I can give you more detail on the culture.
We will make sure that once you finish your first year, get through the first year, get through an internship experience, and we'll sit down and talk about your entire Rotman experience. By then, I may be in Canada, so we may do it in person as well.
For sure.
All right, man. Thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.